We're live.
We are fading in.
Look
at that.
Ooh,
Ooh, a little diamond fade. I like that. So we are back on Lawyer Talk Live, May Cinco de Mayo edition. We just finished up with the Blitz.
Cinco de Steve-O.
Cinco de Steve-O. It is
Happy
my
birthday,
birthday. So
Steve-O.
anybody who was out there just begging to know my birthday, now you do. May 5. But yeah, here live again at the Lawyer Talk table. We'll do some wrap up on the Blitz session here in a minute. But just to get everybody up to speed, we do have Norm Murdoch at the table. Jared dragged him in here.
Yeah.
Smile for the camera, Norm.
Hey.
Yeah, there's Norm. There's
Norm.
Steve,
after listening to you do all that, and this shows you how warped my brain is. All I kept thinking, this is all trivial, but it is how my mind works. I kept thinking of, like, if my name was Palmer and I was an attorney, you got to find a partner. You got to find a couple partners, one named Emerson and one named Lake. I swear to God, I want to see Emerson, Lake, and Palmer on a sign out front. I mean, dude,
of all the weighty issues we take on,
I mean,
you're thinking Emerson, Lake, and Palmer.
that would be badass. You know, that really would be. And then you could dissolve the firm the next day. Just for one day. One day, man.
Yeah. One day I'm going to take a glimpse or a snapshot. I'll send it up to the Ohio Supreme
We
Court.
could legally change our name for one day.
Right.
My God, that's beautiful. How did we never think of that before?
Brain salad surgery.
You go to the beard and be like this. I need you to change your name.
Yeah, you can be a partner, but you got to change your name. You have a choice, though. Since your name is Lynn, you can have Lynn. And that way, it's not such a big switch for you. You can at least keep your initials the same.
Well, I mean, just think of that. You had a rock station calling in, and it's like, hey, now we're going to get a hold of Emerson, Lake, and Palmer.
Like, whoa! I'll hashtag it.
Yeah.
And they'll probably sue me.
Good thing you're an attorney.
What do I know?
Pretty convenient, isn't it?
Anyway, I apologize for that, but that's all I could think about when you're going on and on about Brittany. Lord have mercy.
Happy birthday to you, Steve.
Yeah, exactly. Bring in Norm. All he wants to do is make fun of my law firm.
Sorry.
That's beautiful.
So that was the Blitz experience, man. You got to, it's almost like you were there in the studio with Randy and Lober, and it just is, it's a thing. What do you got going? Oh, here's the Brittany video he's got up there. Questions, and then help us talk about them afterwards.
Yeah.
And you're week live now, third week live with video anyway. And,
I think your firearms question in particular resonated because I think a lot of people that are law abiding and want to be law abiding are going to get caught up in a lot of trouble. I would imagine that there'll be all kinds of attempts to roll back the carry laws.
Yep.
I mean, you know, that the last 20 years has been this renaissance of, firearm rights being asserted by legislatures around the country. And I know that's been driving the anti-freedom party crazy. And I expect that there'll be legislation on that. They're trying to nationalize policing, and once you do that and you couple it with firearms legislation, they're going to try to essentially make almost anything you do with a gun illegal.
Yeah. And, boy, there's a lot. You just added a whole lot of stuff to the plate there, but that's okay. You've got, you're right about the gun. The first point you made, which I agree with, is now all of a sudden we're going to start seeing more enforcement of firearms related laws.
Right.
And this happened back in the Obama years too.
Selectively.
Yeah. Selectively in the sense that,
well, if you're a grandmother and you're in the projects in Chicago and a rapist comes through your window and you use a shotgun, which you're not supposed to have in Chicago, to, defend yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. There isn't a prosecution after grandma for doing that.
Correct.
Okay. And I've got that up because that's factually occurred.
That's a case.
Yeah, that's a case. Now, you take that out of that scenario, right? And you're the couple in St. Louis and you're defending your property against rioters who say that they're going to rape your wife and kill your dog and burn your mansion to the ground. Well, they're going to go after those people.
Yes, they are. And here, it's a good point you're making because, and this is what we were talking about earlier, is that the Department of Justice is an arm of the executive branch of government. And the ramifications of that are significant, or at least can be significant, and they can also be abused, or that power can be abused. And, I'm not saying this is an abuse of power. I'm not saying it's not an abuse of power, but back in 08, 09-ish, we in my profession, defending folks charged with crimes, started to see some gun crimes in federal court. There was a situation where any drug case that we had locally here that involved the ATF as part of the task force or otherwise, and there was a gun involved, it went to federal court. And that was done, I surmise, to pad numbers on gun prosecutions and justify the existence of the ATF. I defended at least one case, and a couple actually, where they were strictly and didn't, you had an off-site gunsmithing shop geographically linked to the actual shop that had the federal firearms license. Even if you're a responsible party under the license, it has to be in the same premise. Sort of technical stuff that when you prosecute it, it just looks like they violated the very important gun laws. But when you dig into it, it's sort of ticky-tack stuff. And again, it is the law and you have to follow it. But we didn't see those prosecutions a couple years before that. And I didn't see those prosecutions in the last 4 or 5 years. And now we're going to start seeing them again. And it's because that is the enforcement measures that the executive wants to take. And we saw the same thing. I called up a friend of mine in law enforcement way back when, after say 9/11 and maybe the 3 or 4 or 5 years after that. And I said, what happened to all the drug cases? And they said, oh, no, we're doing terrorism work now. We're not enforcing drug. Now, it didn't mean that drug crimes went down. It just meant that federal prosecutions of drug crimes went down. So there's a difference. But what you're saying is you're going to see increased measures of enforcement, and then you took it to the next level and say it's going to be selectively enforced based on politics and it happens.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you though to clarify that analogy,
Sure.
because something popped in my head when you said it. And I'm just becoming the devil's advocate.
No, that's
That
cool.
the grandma defends herself with a shotgun with the
Right.
rapist or
An
burglar comes into her
an
apartment.
illegal shotgun.
Okay.
You're
And
not
then-
allowed to possess a shotgun in
Right.
Chicago back at that time.
Yeah.
This is before the Heller decision.
Okay, but the action happened. That
That actually
right,
happened.
that the person came in to attack her, burglar, whatever.
And she had an
So-
illegal contraband shotgun and used
Right.
it to defend herself, and they did nothing to her.
Okay.
And I'm glad they did nothing
Right.
to her.
And then the other side you're comparing it to though is defending your home of people saying they're going to rape and pillage your mansion.
that
But they didn't do it.
So that couple is accused of brandishing.
Right.
Okay. They had a gun
Yeah.
on display and projected that they were willing to use them, and that's brandishing.
Okay.
Okay. And that's against the law, I guess,
Okay.
in the state of Missouri.
Okay. Well, I just want to because I knew that scenario, but I didn't think
Yeah.
anything happened. They were just protecting. Nobody came in and did what they said they were going to
Well,
do.
nothing happened either way. So first,
Right.
there was nobody got shot.
Right.
And secondly, nobody came in the house. Now, what Norm you're talking about is brandishing. So it is true mostly across the board that if I brandish a firearm, it is a use of deadly force for purposes of establishing.
That's what I wanted to kind of expand on a little
for
bit.
purposes of thinking
Yeah.
about self-defense.
They were on the property.
And they were on
Right.
the
They
property.
were though.
yeah.
You're right. Oh yeah, for
They
sure.
were.
Yeah.
And most states, I don't know, I think that was out in Missouri, but most states let you use deadly force to defend your property or your home. And this is, we're getting to the heart of the Second Amendment. And if you use Supreme Court verbiage, the core value of the Second Amendment is is self-defense and the defense of home.
And it is illegal to threaten violence.
Yes.
So if I
Right.
say
words matter.
if
Yeah,
I
exactly.
say
Yeah.
I'm going to murder you,
Mhm.
or I'm going to rape you, or I'm going to do this or that or the other thing, and it's an act of violence, that is against the law.
Mhm.
I'm not allowed to say that.
Right. Exactly.
Without
There are actions to
consequence.
your words. Exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a threat,
Mhm.
and there's laws against that.
Yeah,
And so
okay.
these people were threatened with violence, And I think it's reasonable for them to then, what would a reasonable man do? Reasonable man would defend himself. And they used the appropriate amount of brandishing or projecting of power to need what they needed to do to put that threat aside. And I would say they did a perfect job of that.
Well, it's always been how, and we've talked about this numerous
Because
times,
no
how the
violence
media,
did
how
happen.
the media frames it.
Well, and
Our
this is
well,
the
yeah.
that is it. And Norm, you're right. It is that I perceive as a grossly politically driven and motivated prosecution.
Absolutely.
That is absurd. Now, a couple things just to be fair. It's not the federal government bringing that prosecution. It's at the state level, I think. Am I right about that?
It's a Soros-funded a local prosecutor.
Sure, but it's not DOJ. It's not federal
No.
U.S. Department of Justice.
No.
And then the second thing is it's not Illinois. It's not Chicago. So it can't be selective prosecution from a legal standpoint unless it's two people are treated differently or two situations treated differently by the same people, by the same jurisdiction.
Well, okay, so let's take Louisville. So there was the NFAC march where what's Grandmaster Jay and his guys were using their Second Amendment rights.
No, they call me the exchequer.
They were openly carrying. They were having their
You
little
get it up there.
having their little parade, and there was a negligent.
I did.
It's not up there now.
What?
What you're looking at.
Oh, no, I'm trying to find what exactly happened
Oh, I got you.
to these Missouri folks.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So keep
So,
going.
Sure, go ahead.
so there was that in where Breonna Taylor was same jurisdiction.
Mhm.
Okay, so NFAC, the No Fucking Around Coalition, NFAC, Grandmaster Jay, ostensibly a civil rights group, Second Amendment guys, carrying their AR-15s, whatever. And there was a negligent discharge. You probably remember a couple of people were actually struck by either the bullets or by ricochet material that injured two people. That's
Yep.
my understanding. No prosecution. Now, had that been an NRA or I'm just trying to think of some other march. Had that have been a pro-police march or a are you kidding me?
KKK. So I always go to the extremes.
Are
because
you kidding? Well, why go KK? Let's just say NRA. Let's just suppose it was a bunch of farmers, who just wanted to
pro-Trump people. Call it pro-Trumpers.
or whatever, right? I mean, doesn't even have to be in the realm of supporting a candidate, but just guys who are of a different color. Okay.
Fair enough. So then in this situation, you think that, and I'm not saying you're wrong, that
I'm
this group
definitely
was-
not wrong.
this group was
I'm
treated
definitely not
differently because of their race. And I think you're
We're
right.
talking downtown Louisville. There was a discharge of an AR-15. They know the guy who was carrying it. They now know it was loaded. It went off and it injured two people.
Yeah. What if that were the Proud Boys?
I mean, come on.
Right. It'd be the federal, like the federal government would descend on that and be all over it.
So there you go. Same jurisdiction. Okay. This big thing about the cop and and I wasn't there and I don't know all the facts about Breonna and I'm sorry she's dead and all that. And I'm sincere about that. But I'm also sincere about a guy carrying a gun and it charged, injures two people, and they do nothing about that.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. And that's
a political prosecute.
correct.
I get a million of those.
And-
We'd be here all day.
Yeah, and this is it's an interesting point because in my world representing people charged with crimes, there's always a what about this case or what about that case more than this guy got.
Sure.
And the only thing I've learned in the world doing what I do is that I have no answer to it. There is no answer to it other than it's not fair.
It's discretion.
Yeah, it's not fair.
It's discretion.
And often I have people charged with crimes when others doing the same thing are not charged with crimes. I have
Right.
people who are treated differently by the system where at least on the face of it, the facts are the same. In another case where people are treated differently.
Right.
And I just don't have an answer for it. But when you point out situations like that, it really does sort of peel the layers back of what goes on and why we have prosecutions and what motivates things. And this is like I have this notion. I love going back to this notion of scarcity. Like everything, there's a scarcity to everything. And there's a
Yeah.
scarcity of resources to prosecute cases. There's a
Sure.
scarcity of law enforcement. There's a scarcity of court time. There's a
Right.
scarcity of lawyer time.
Right.
And how it gets implemented certainly results in some discrimination against somebody somehow. Maybe
Sure.
not unlawful.
Right.
Now, what you're talking about is, or if it's proven, would even be unlawful if it's a disparate treatment or at least different treatment by somebody based on their skin color or race,
Right.
whether they're white or whether they're black or whether they're Asian or whether they're not, whatever it is,
Right.
it's discrimination and it's not permitted by government actors.
Right. I hate to dominate, but as soon as we start talking about race, okay, this drives me crazy. So you know, just to describe myself a little bit, I probably am part African American. I probably am. Uh, uh, I don't understand people that are proud of being Irish, proud of being Italian, proud of being black, proud of being something that is a complete accident of their birth. I
Mhm.
don't know how you're proud of that. I'm not proud of being male. I'm not proud of being an Ohioan. I just am what I am. And I don't understand any of this racialization of things that you're not the cause of. Now, am I proud that I had a decent tomato garden? Yeah. Am I proud that I won a race? Yeah. Am I proud that I have a college degree? Yeah. I did those things. Am I proud of my ethnic heritage? No.
Yeah, and I think there's
I
a
don't. I don't
confusion.
even get that.
I think there's a confusion, and I guess I would say this, that proud of your ethnic origin is maybe different than a connection with the culture of your ethnic origin. So if somebody is Irish and their grandmother was Irish and their father was Irish and they used to sing the Irish tenor songs, I think that is in large part what makes our country so cool is that we do have that is true diversity.
Well, you can like
That
all
is
that.
diversity.
You
Now,
can
pride may not be the right word, but a connection maybe is
terrible.
often confused with pride or saying I am. I guess you're demanding when it starts to be you expect certain different treatment one way or another because of those things.
Well,
Well, then that goes too
I'll
far.
tell you where I'm going. Okay. So Barack Obama. Well, I don't know if his father, because we're not with race courts in this country. I don't know his father's complete DNA background, and I don't give a rat. But let's just suppose, for sake of argument, that his father was 100% African, 100% Negro, 100% Black. And let's just suppose his mother was 100% Caucasian, white, cracker, whatever, pejorative people want to put on white people. So what is Barack Obama? What should he be proud of? Is he proud of being white? Why is he proud of being black? Why is he proud of his race at all? I'm not proud of mine. I'm not embarrassed. I don't dislike my race. It's just a factor. It's like I have brown hair. Who cares?
Sure.
I would like myself or dislike myself no more if I had blonde hair or red hair than I have brown hair.
Sure. And I think
I don't get it, and I don't get this racialization of everything, Steve. I don't
well,
understand
it's
it.
a path to Marxism is what it is,
Well,
right? That's
exactly,
right. That's
exactly.
the
But I don't understand why we can't calmly talk about race. I've heard from the left my entire life that we need to have a conversation about race in this country. Dude, I'm afraid of no conversation about race in this country. I've been talking about race my entire life. I come from a political family. I've My father and my family have been in black churches campaigning for their votes. I've been to black student organizations when I campaigned for um, uh, b- b- being the president at the University of Cincinnati student government. I was endorsed by those organizations, and I just made the argument I will represent you like I will any other student organization. And I'm sure that's what Ginther tells black groups here in Columbus. I'm sure that's what Sherrod Brown tells black groups in the state of Ohio. And what I don't understand is this whole identity thing that only blacks can represent blacks, only Italians can represent Italians, only gays can represent gays, only lesbians can represent lesbians. We are destroying our country by division.
It is absurd.
It's
All those things,
absurd.
yeah, all those things
It's
are absurd. And I've always said this. And what you're really talking about is a logical breakdown of this notion of the critical race theory. You know, where
Absolutely.
all of a sudden, if you and we off the air, we were talking about this. If you
Right.
take certain terms, redefine them,
Yeah.
and then argue from those new definitions, well, then it's easy to have a logical argument, except it isn't logical.
Well,
You
why is
change the
why,
terms.
right? So why is Madam Justice shown with a blinder over her eyes? Why is she blind? Justice is blind because you're not supposed to consider
Correct.
external facts like race,
Yes.
color of my hair, my pride about being black or white or whatever my problem is about my pride of my skin color, which is just de facto silly. It's silly.
It's
And it's a non-factor in our justice system, and people should be taught that. But yet, that was precisely the factor which determined whether or not to prosecute those guys at the NFAC
yes.
march.
Yes. I think you're absolutely right about all of it. And it all makes sense. And I think if we just took a survey around our country and just sort of asked people in a casual way, do they agree with you? They would say yes. I think most of the Americans would agree with you that everybody should be treated equally by the system, no matter what system we're in, whether
Sure.
we're in whatever government run system there is,
Right.
everybody ought to be treated equally.
Yeah.
And if they're not, then we need to address it.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. By creating this racial divisiveness, you are advocating for the opposite. You want to treat one race differently than the other, maybe better and maybe worse. I don't know. Or you want to deem it a factor in how you were treated. And that is a path, forgive me, but it's a path straight to hell. It just
Absolutely.
is. When you start giving our government the authority to pick and choose which race to treat differently, whether treat better or treat worse,
Right.
it is a path to hell. We've been on that path. It killed 600,000 people in our country
Yeah.
in 1861 to 1865, right? I
right.
mean, it was,
Yeah.
that was a path to hell.
Yeah.
And
I had one of those relatives. So we have a relative that died in the Andersonville prison, Confederate prison. So he was a Union soldier, Irish, um, recent immigrant, fought for the Union, was taken prisoner, died in Andersonville, Georgia, in the concentration camp there. Okay. So when Jesse and Al roll out this silly idea about reparations for people alive today that were never slaves, people that maybe like Colin Powell, whose ancestors weren't even in America during slavery, that came in from the Caribbean or some other place. Um, when they want to talk about reparations, well, where's the reparations for all the Union soldiers' families?
who died, yeah. And I've had that conversation
Are
with
you
people.
kidding me? I
And
mean, like
know,
what?
split it down the middle. It's probably more Southerners who died in the war than Northerners, just because we won. The North won. But they say it's 250,000 people.
Well, dude, where's my reparations from the Turkish government for them taking over the country of Lebanon and enslaving my people?
Yeah.
Where are my reparations for my Irish ancestors because Great Britain oppressed and murdered, millions of did in the Ukraine?
It is just for stirring up.
It's ridiculous.
Stirring up political winds to get power, and that's all this is.
It's insanity.
And I can't. You're right that with all this talk of we have to have a conversation. I have found people who advocate this stuff so unwilling to actually have a conversation, to have a logical conversation anyway.
Right.
And instead, the shout down is, "You're racist. You wouldn't understand. You don't understand. You don't have my lived experience." And
Right.
and my typical response to this is, and I'm not even shy about it, is, look, if you have a lived experience,
Yeah.
it's incumbent upon you to explain it to me.
Right.
If you don't think I can understand it, explain it to me.
Well, who did the checks go to?
Yeah.
Are we going to cut a check to Barack Obama? If so, on what basis? His father was
sure.
a Kenyan.
Where do you stop it? Like
Uh,
who gets it? Is
well-
it solely on skin color? Now we're going to have race test. Now we're going to
Well,
have
is
a
he-
DNA test.
Well, is he black or is
And
he white?
You know who's going to make a lot of money? Is
It doesn't matter.
the family tree people and the DNA people. They're going to make a ton of money because everybody's
They
going to have to go
already
get tested.
We're right back to race courts.
Yeah.
Now we're Nazi Germany, where you're going to go in, you got to establish, are you or are you not an African American who's entitled to get this loan forgiven or get these reparations or get your affirmative action points to get a scholarship or get a job at the fire department? Is that really where we want to go with this country? We elected ostensibly a black president twice by overwhelming majorities from white suburbs. I think we're done.
Yeah.
I think we're equal. I think we're done. I think I heard a survey result that said 97% of Americans are okay with interracial marriages. My God, at what point of perfection of racial harmony do we have to get to before the race baiting industry, Al and Jesse and the gang, and Ben, and all these other guys that want to stir up the ones that jumped on the Columbus shooting, where the cop is defending another black girl from a black girl with a knife. Okay, how much more of this do we have to endure before we finally gavel out that, hey, in America we're doing pretty damn good?
Yeah, and there is a notion of look, I'm a woodworker, and I've always made this sort of joke to myself. It's like perfection is absolutely necessary, but completely unattainable, right? It's like we're never going to have everybody's notion of perfect harmony ever. Utopia doesn't exist. It never has existed.
Right.
We're not going to just suddenly reinvent human nature and reinvent human civilization here in
Right.
our era and make it perfect, because then it would suck. If everybody is equal and everybody is the same and everybody can do what everybody else can do and everybody has what everybody else has, there is nothing valuable there. There is nothing to want. There is nothing to work for. There's no satisfaction in life. And people, this is a basic Christian notion too. Really, people are like, well, look, why have all this suffering, or why have all these disparities and everything else? It's because like equality. If you didn't have those things, then there would be no way to measure that those things even exist. Like we know those things because they are.
Right.
Like you can't, if everybody's the same, then everybody's the same.
Right.
And there is no measure of anybody. And it doesn't mean that one is worse than the other. I think we just need to accept that I am not going to be able to drive a race car as well as you. You are good at it, and I'm cool with it. Or maybe, you're better at whatever it is you're better at, and I'm better at whatever it is I'm better at it. And, this is basic sort of Lockean stuff, is that we're going to learn how to get along and utilize through alienation of labor or through agreement or through human interaction, the best of everybody. But if you cram down equality on everybody, then you don't make the people incapable of driving a race car capable. You have to lessen your ability to do it. It's a handicap.
No, 100%.
My retort to this is, it's just for 2 weeks. That's how they can do it, Norm.
Yeah.
And while we're focused over
incrementalism.
here,
Yeah.
they're taking away all of what we have right now.
Absolutely.
Well, and here's the other big question.
For sure.
And the big question is this, that I still am waiting on an answer for. What is the alternative? So we need to fundamentally change our country, fundamentally change our system. And they're talking about the Constitution, presumably. And I've had this conversation, man, because this pisses me off. I actually, we've had problems with our Constitution that we have rectified through the constitutional process, which is ironic, right? Because if the document is so horrible, then why then would it give us a means or so
women's suffrage?
Yeah, we have the
Women's
means to
suffrage.
change it.
Right.
And there's a process.
Right.
So change it.
The first state to give women the right to vote?
I don't.
I think it was Montana.
Yes.
I mean, isn't that
no? It
interesting?
was Wyoming.
Was it Wyoming? It was
Wyoming.
out west. One of those out there.
I always ask people, what would you change? So
Yeah.
we're talking, like, I hear the same complaints. A bunch of old white dudes that own slaves wrote this document. And I say, I agree. Now, what you're going to rewrite it? What are you going to do?
Wyoming.
Yeah. So next time some snotty European, like, from England, because I'm on a lot of discussion lists, likes to wag his finger and say, gosh, you guys were afraid of women voting. Wyoming gave women the vote before Great Britain. Yeah, go ahead.
Interesting.
Go ahead and check that out.
1869, Wyoming.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
you go. So, the Europeans can stick it right up their ass.
Yeah.
Our ethnic diversity here, our women's rights, our standing against slavery while England stood for the Confederacy,
Mhm.
okay, during the Civil War, okay, and tried numerous ways to foil Abraham Lincoln and the Union during the war. For them to talk down to us, okay, or for America to be perceived as a racist country is a flat out joke.
Yeah. No,
It's a flat.
it's absurd.
Europeans perpetrated the slavery that came to America, okay, and it was Americans that threw the yoke of European slavery off of this country.
Yeah.
It was a movement in America of black and whites getting together, starting the Republican Party, and even before then, Jefferson and Washington, they knew it was wrong.
Yes.
Okay. Otherwise, why would they free their slaves at their deaths?
Yeah.
Okay. Why would they do that? Because they knew it was wrong.
Now, if you go back and read these dialogues, particularly the ones later, I've talked about this on the show before, the ones later between Adams and Jefferson, who hated each other through most of their sort of salient political careers. But as they grew old and they look back like these sort of grandfathers of the country and said, look what's happened. What is it? You can hear in their tone the one regret they had, which is they couldn't get rid of slavery yet. They knew that they had punted that for the next group of people, of great men who were going to get rid of it.
Right.
And I've had so many intelligent people.
And yet they put the seeds, the 3/5
Yes.
count.
They planted the seeds.
They planted the seeds. And it doesn't mean that a black person is worth 3/5 of a white person, which is being taught incorrectly
You bet.
by the 1619 or whatever that idiot project is. They don't even understand the purpose of that.
Yeah. It was to give them less power in Congress.
It was to give the slave states less power in Congress.
Correct.
Duh.
Right.
It was a pro-freedom clause.
And then comes the Kansas, Nebraska. Then after Lincoln gets assassinated, and until it's just, with all its warts, with all its flaws, with everything else, is what it is. And I know what it is not. And I've had intelligent people make this comment to me. Our country was built on slavery, and it's complete hogwash. It's nonsense. Our country was built despite slavery. It almost wasn't built because of slavery. We almost didn't have a country. After we almost couldn't get the southern states to join the Union, and the northern states to join the Union because they disagreed on this stuff. And
The cotton industry did not falter because of the end of slavery, because the cotton gin was invented almost
Sure.
contemporaneously with the end of the Civil War. And so technology made it possible for fewer people to harvest cotton the same,
Sure.
So the South did not lose the cotton
Of
industry,
course not.
because of the end of slavery.
And in fact, slavery is objectively contrary to capitalism. I mean, it couldn't be more inconsistent with a capitalistic
Exactly.
society. And
Right.
maybe we would have had the cotton gin long before if they would have had to.
Exactly right.
It's like
Right.
instead they, through force of slavery, they didn't have to have that.
Just
And-
like maybe the minimum wage would naturally, under market forces, be higher if we weren't taking in unfettered illegal immigrants.
Well, sure,
Huh.
right?
Wow. So if there were fewer people in this country to do stoop labor, and you actually had to pay American citizens, I don't know, $20-25 an hour to pick fruit in California, jobs that Americans won't do, well, maybe they would do it at $25 an hour.
Oh, don't get me started, Norm. I lived out there. Man, those guys are just raping the system.
Absolutely.
Absolute. I
Yeah.
mean, my God.
Absolutely.
And I've always said about this, like these are the immigration and the foreign labor coming in. There's a real simple way. You can just say, all right, fine, you can come and work here, but you got a sign right here. You're not allowed to live here. You can't stay. You got a work permit, and we're going to take taxes. Ends it like that.
Well, you know who used to patrol the border? They say it's all these white guys with guns and their ARs, and they're because they don't like Mexican. They don't like people with brown skin. It was Cesar Chavez. So the patron saint of organized party was the most fierce opponent
Brutal.
of illegal immigration. Why? Because his pickers union guys would not get paid, any kind of a living wage if they could bring poor Mexicans in across the border, pay them basically nothing, slave
Sure.
labor.
Mhm.
Okay. So, I mean, it's just unbelievable that people turn that into a racial issue when it's an economic issue.
It's absurd. So why do you think that is? Why? And I question this. Is it if you talk to people, they take on the talking points of the media, and they would say it's racism not to promote open border policy,
Right.
and I think, well, that's just absurd. But why? If you ask most people, they would agree with that without really thinking about it. But then you have to ask, like, what's the real reason why one group of people or one party would want open borders over not open borders? Because I got to tell you, it connecting those dots in a real nefarious way is not that difficult.
Well, the party of big business is the Democratic Party.
Sure.
All the big wigs on Wall Street, all the big bankers, all the big media tycoons, with the exception of just a few percent, they're all Democrats. So these factory farms, like take the egg farm out there under previous management. I don't know what the current management does, but under the previous management out there where Jared and I live,
Mhm.
staffed. In fact, the biggest OSHA fine in history up until that time was an unheated, overcrowded house full of illegal Mexican immigrants, and they dropped the boom on the egg farm out there for that because of these guys were literally burning wood in the frigid temperatures of dead of winter, burning wood to keep that house.
They had them in trailers. They had them in
unbelievable.
mobile homes,
Right.
with no water,
Right.
no electric,
Right.
and they had them stacked in there. And they had them hidden out in the woods. I remember I saw a big documentary on
Right.
PBS on it.
Sure. So where were
And
all the
even when they hit Trillium Farms,
Guy,
Sure.
that's been happening for
Ever.
at least 30, 40 years. I've
Right.
seen it in Indiana. I've
Yep.
seen it here.
right.
I've seen it in California.
Right.
I've seen it almost in every place I've been.
Right.
Yeah.
So where
And they shuffle them around
So
like
where-
from
where-
store to
where's-
store.
so where's all the caring by all the sweet little suburban women that listen to Oprah and The View and have this pie in the sky notion that it's the evil Republicans that are exploiting the illegal immigrants? No, it's not.
They don't know what's happening.
They
Norm.
don't know. They're
Well, that's a good point, because how
They're
do
lost.
they don't know what's happened because of the narrative, the diet they get, the steady diet rather they get from the media. And the problem is, if you say it enough times, the left-leaning media, and to some extent the right-leaning media, they're both good at this. They come up with their little talking points, their little catchphrases, and then they catch on. Like, this is my eye doctor experience. He's like, well, Trump was the greatest threat to democracy we've ever had. And then when I asked him why, he couldn't answer. And, if I've asked a lot of people why, and they can't answer, they don't have a good answer. Like, what? And if they do say, well, because he threatened the outcome of the election, I say, no, he did that in court. And, the argument you may have is he incited a riot there at the end. And fair enough, if you're going to say that he is the root cause of that, but it didn't threaten democracy in any way, shape, or form. Democracy continued. It would have continued. There was no chance that these jackasses were going to take over our government and instill some sort of other government.
You mean the guy
And-
with a Viking hat with
Sure.
the horns?
On
No.
the heels of a year of BLM burning our cities.
Sure.
What
So
in the what?
it
That was-
wasn't, it's irrational. So when I ask people, how did Trump actually threaten any individual right that you have, any individual right that any citizen has, regardless of their gender, regardless of their color, regardless of anything? What freedom was taken away from anybody when Trump was president? And what freedom did anybody under the Trump administration advocate taking away?
Well, I'm not a mega Trumper. Okay. I listen, I never watched his silly show on TV where, he fired everybody and all that. And I always found his personality revolting and all of that. And I voted for him 2 times.
Sure.
Now, why did I do that? I did that. Okay. So I took maritime law when I was in law school. maritime law is all about comparative negligence. There's never a perfect boat accident out in the middle of the ocean. It's always a comparative analysis between, two captains who both screwed up. So which one screwed up more, and then you allocate the percentage. So what am I get? What choice was I given?
Sure.
Okay, I got Hillary Clinton, okay, who wants to dictate everything in my life, or I got Donald Trump. So what would any normal person, do in that situation? Well, I voted for Trump. It was just a comparative analysis. It wasn't because I liked his personality. It wasn't because he was white. Wasn't because he was male. It wasn't because I liked his personality. It was just like
In fact, it was probably despite all those things,
it
right?
was
Yeah.
he was the least worst choice. He
Yeah.
was the least worst choice.
Yeah.
And Biden, versus Trump, same decision.
And you sort of fall like I do, libertarian, where the true executive grant of authority is actually pretty
Yeah.
small. It should be nominal. The executive
Right.
really shouldn't have that much power. So it shouldn't matter all that much, except now we've created a system where the executive has almost all the power. We're electing basically a
Right.
king every 4 years.
There's a whole list of things Trump did wrong.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, it's an
But-
unbelievable list
and-
of
and
things he did wrong.
if I had fault with Trump, it was the same fault I had with Obama and the same fault I now have with Biden. There are more, but it has to do with this idea of executive action, being able to just sign executive orders and do things because you can't get them through Congress. And it may not even be Trump's fault, Obama's fault, or Biden's fault as much as it is our fault for creating a system that permits it because it's not supposed to.
Well, Congress decided years ago to create all these departments and secretariats.
Sure, Woody
Right.
Wilson, old Woodrow. I think it started under Woodrow Wilson,
All-
and
and-
FDR just drove a truck through it.
and gave them what hitherto congressional powers,
Sure,
okay, through the regulatory system, okay, many legislatures, which is made up of bureaucrats sitting in their office doing, advance notices of federal regulation, okay, that nobody reads, outside of lobbyists. Then lobbyists come in, tell them, no, the regs got to be tweaked a little bit this way, a little bit that way on, EPA average, the cafe laws for car miles or
Yep.
whatever the issue is, farm
sure, it's political
policy.
issues.
That's all. And those are things that should hitherto were debated. Those kinds of big decisions were debated in Congress, but Congress decided to just offshore that, if you will,
Yep.
to these federal agencies. So now you have people installed in these bureaucracies for 30, 40 years, nameless, faceless people the public cannot get rid of.
And they
Again,
have tons of power.
And they
I
have
go
tons
back
of
to
power.
it's just for 2 weeks, Norm.
That's all.
That's all.
Well,
That's all.
That's all.
here's an example I give people because I love to point out hypocrisy, and I love it when people call me on hypocrisy too, because we are all guilty of it. But
Yeah.
and we try not to be. I always try to draw consistent boundaries on things and have rules that fit in many directions. But everybody right now, all for whatever reason, thinks that our Department of Health, our Director of Health here, say just take Ohio, is omnipotent. They're the best science around. They're the best health. They're the best docs. They're the best everything around. And then it sort of caught me as like a punch in the gut when I start to hear this, because I've been doing DUI, drunk driving defense, my entire career. And our General Assembly, and then later our court system has determined that the Director of Health's job is to promulgate, that is, create rules for breath testing, urine testing, and blood testing in drunk driving cases. So I can't, in Ohio, believe it or not, go and stand in front of a jury and say, guess what, ladies and gentlemen, there's a test here. It's 0.10 and the legal limit is 0.08. And this individual blew into this machine that was otherwise acting the way operating the way it's supposed to. But you know what? This machine is capable of error. This machine is not always reliable. And there are situations where they've created statistical analyses that apply certain formulas to everybody across the board instead of an individual. So your rate of extrapolation of elimination of alcohol might be different than Brett's, might be different than Jared's. We're just going to add all, and you're going to come up with what your BAC should have been using something called Henry's Law, 1200 to 1 conversion ratio, and that's that. I can't say that in a courtroom in front of a jury in Ohio, because we have determined, that is, our Ohio Supreme Court has determined that the Director of Health already decided that for us, and it's good science. So it's not good science. Now, here's where it gets really sort of absurd, and it's come to fruition lately. If I am driving a car and I have a prohibited concentration of marijuana in my system, I don't really have a prohibited concentration of marijuana in my system, but it's a crime. It's driving under the influence of marijuana. Here's what the director of health has done in its infinite wisdom. They have created a standard, and the General Assembly, went right along with it. They create a standard that doesn't measure THC; it measures the metabolites of THC. So think about that. I'm driving; it's a crime, and I'm accused of being impaired by marijuana, and they're testing my impairment by the metabolites of the substance I took at some point before. There's no correlation. You can't say that I'm driving impaired now based on the metabolites in my system. I could have smoked
It
pot
could have been 30
ago.
days ago.
Sure, and even
Wow.
longer.
Wow.
And this is the rule in Ohio. Now it's coming to a head again because absurd, stupid rules lead to absurd, stupid results.
Yeah.
And now with medical marijuana, I'm starting to see some pushback on this. And there's some national scientists and experts. Ohio's unique this way, or at least in the minority, I think, of states that do it this way. They're like, well, that's just stupid. Like, of course it's stupid. But your point is this: I don't have a good way to challenge that. I can't go into a courtroom and challenge it. I'm not allowed to because Director of Health said that's what we do.
Wow.
It's like it's a circular problem
Yeah.
that has led to absurd results. And it just points out. So if you think that doesn't make sense, then why on earth do you think that any other policy coming out of the Department of Health
Right.
also makes sense unless you do what we're advocating?
Right.
Look at it,
Right.
see what they base their decision on, and evaluate it, because they're just people too. And they have, I call it my big three: money, power, ego. They're motivated by those things, and their jobs are dependent upon doing things a certain way, like politically, like you're saying.
Yeah.
And if they don't, then they may not keep their job. They're going to get fired, and they'll put somebody in who will.
Right.
And we as people, the people, do not get to vote.
You
Well-
mean it's like dictating a shutdown off of a test that
Correct.
not supposed to be used as a diagnostic test
It's just like
to
that.
find
Yeah.
a
it's
virus
just like
that
that.
actually isn't right there?
But somehow we're
You just
willing.
made that up.
Somehow we're willing to accept that as gospel.
I did.
But
Not.
at the same, if you point out the marijuana thing, they're like, well, that's stupid.
Yeah.
Well, can't two things be stupid?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
like one doesn't make the other stupid. My point is that one might make you want to question the other. And don't just say, because this is dumb, the next one's dumb.
Well, what we have done with science in the United States, in our culture today, is we have decided that the side of science that we want to be the dogma, okay, which is a religious concept,
Mhm.
okay, that is science, okay, and the scientific method is anything but dogmatic. The scientific method is constant, everlasting, continuous argument and proof about the validity of any conclusion.
Correct.
Testing,
Yeah.
proof. Norm, you're hitting all the buttons, man.
Yeah.
You're hitting all our buttons, boy.
It's like talking to ourselves.
It is. It's
So-
Steve and I have been having that
so-
conversation for probably 2 years, because I've seen it in my profession.
Yeah.
He's seen it in the law,
Yeah.
actual practice law.
Yeah.
And I'm in science and engineering, and
Yeah.
I'm seeing it, and it has just been just a degradation of the scientific method.
They are still Newtonian physics are not settled.
Nothing is
Right.
settled.
They
Right.
we are still in serious scientific journals. They are still debating whether Newton had it all down.
Yeah, and Einstein,
Einstein,
and that's
Darwin,
the beauty of
it's all the
science.
same.
But
Right.
my God, you cannot
Dare you
discuss-
question it?
Herr Dr. Fauci.
Yeah.
You can, I mean, you cannot in any way derogate or challenge or ask that he back up anything he says, because some daffy lady on The View has made it culturally impossible, okay, politically, to question the darling Dr. Fauci.
It's so.
And so we, instead of electing a governor or electing a president to make policy, we've offshored it to some bureaucrat gets paid $400,000 a year.
Yeah, and it's almost like you're better off as a non-scientist to evaluate what these scientists are saying. I mean, if much rather have a critical thinker, somebody who's willing to question everything, somebody
Right.
who is not afraid to challenge conclusions,
Right.
go in and read a scientific journal and start asking questions.
Well,
And
and a
that-
real scientist, like our man over here, right, is not afraid of being challenged.
sure.
Or being wrong
Or-
and having to readjust my hypothesis.
Because you want
That's
to
what
learn.
science is.
That's what science is.
Because we're trying to get to the truth.
we're trying to get to the truth.
But that is now verboten.
And if you go back to Aristotle, right, the scientific method sort of goes back to Aristotle. They say the idea is to create a system that it's. I sort of make it. I sort of analogize it to like the airplane checklist. You know, everybody knows that you got to pull the landing gear up, or everybody knows you got to turn the engine on. Everybody knows you got to turn the lights on. Everybody knows you got to turn all the systems on.
Yeah.
But they still follow the checklist
Yeah.
because they don't want to make it subjective in any way, shape, or form. It
I
has
have
to be objectively tested.
Dude, I have a checklist for my race car.
There you
So
go.
I have a pickup crew. These are not people that do this professionally. You know, I got a horse training lady. I got a guy who's an aircraft mechanic. I got a guy who's a union plumber. I got a guy who runs an IT company. And on a weekend, they'll come together for Team Blitz, go up to Mid Ohio or go to Road Atlanta or go to Sebring, Florida, and they'll crew for me. Okay. And we've got a list, just like what you're talking about. And it's not a list, you know, it's not to put anybody down.
It's so sad that we have to even explain that now.
I mean,
Right,
it's unbelievable.
How is that even
yeah.
like racist or anything to have a list?
Go to
Exactly.
Valvoline.
Of,
By the way, I have a diverse racing team.
Yeah.
So I mentioned I have a lady. Okay. No,
do you?
I'm talking about on the crew.
No, you don't have a lady on your team.
She-
How could you?
She's ex NASCAR, and you know, and we have people of different races, and none of that matters, and
It
they
doesn't
know
matter.
it doesn't matter to me, and they know that, you know, I don't have any pride in any of these uncontrollable aspects of who I am, and I don't respect anybody because of their gender or their race. That's ridiculous. That's like respecting a Hereford cow, you know, because it's a Hereford.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. I mean, it just it didn't decide to be a Hereford cow. It just came out one.
And this is why
So
Well, the
on
way you
its
go,
face.
be more proud of your accomplishments.
Exactly.
This is what I am. This is who I am.
That's what Martin
This is
Luther
what
King
I have
was
done.
talking about.
Yes.
Content of character.
Yes.
yes.
Content of character.
And-
What the
and-
hell
And
have you done?
pride, and pride isn't even the right word. It's more that you're comfortable with what you've done and you can stand by it. And
Right.
if you want to judge me by anything, here's,
Right.
and it's not because
Right.
I squirted out of some race's vagina, right? It's like
Exactly.
it has
It's
nothing to do with
ridiculous.
that, right?
Right.
And it's offensive.
And we don't even know what people's races are, and I'm comfortable with that. And as America keeps progressing, as we blend different skin colors together, we're all going to end up tan.
Mhm.
All of you.
It's just we're a melange. We'll all
Which is
be
really cool.
which is
So-
really cool. And
right.
then, you know, at what point do we just make the call that we're not going to identify each other by racial stock?
because those
That's
people
rid-
are making money on it, Norm.
Because people are making money on
And
it.
what
Hey,
I
if I could just real quick, two things.
Yes, sir.
you're just
when-
supposed to check facts back there. You don't.
What- well,
You're
I'm
doing
checking on this. When's the last time Daffy has ever been said on this podcast? and I have a nice little historical timeline of women's suffrage that I actually relates to all this. If you guys want to see it or get on or
Throw it
talk
up there.
about it,
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's
Throw
take
it
a
up
look.
there.
All
All
right.
right, so
just real quick.
you're only about 20 minutes behind. me.
Well, dude, that was man, that was an unbelievable whatever.
All right, let's
so-
take a look.
1776, New Jersey, some provisional women's suffrage in school elections, and first voting was granted to propertied widows, and then that got, then in 1838, all propertied widows and unmarried women got the right to vote. I think that's just in school elections.
And
So
I-
it's like it's a fits in a start. So it gets down to 1869, where Wyoming did give
There you go.
the full money of this
But-
in the caveat to the Wyoming thing. This is very interesting. Some supporters argued on the basis of equal rights. Others argued that women should not be.
So it wasn't.
So it's a business.
It wasn't necessarily that all women just wanted to vote. It was just sort of what it was. And we can look at these things and say, well, this is grossly unequal, and this was a horrible constitutional policy. And you know what? We just fixed it.
Yeah.
We just said,
Oh
all
my
right,
God.
let's amend the Constitution and be done with this problem once and for all.
Yeah.
And we were, and we are.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of that document. Is
So
that
you want to be proud of something? Be proud of that.
I'm proud of that.
Be proud of that.
I am. It gives me chills almost every time, because if you really can just the thought, the philosophy, the history, the consideration that went into creating that document, like considering what happened at the time, you had all these states independent of each other who are now going to form a more perfect union,
Right.
because the one they of Confederacy didn't work. So we're going to do it one part of that whole worked.
Oh my God.
And it's
So
it's really amazing.
Just in my lifetime, okay, which is just, I still think of myself as a punk kid, but I'm not. But just in my lifetime, I get to shake hands with Jesse Owens, okay? I get to shake hands with guys in baseball.
Yeah.
Okay. Jackie Robinson broke through and there was play in the majors. Okay.
Man, think of what those guys went through.
Think of what those guys went through.
Woo.
So there's two ways to feel about that. Okay. My country, that all of those fantastic black baseball players that could only play in the Negro leagues down south. And I met some of them. I met some of their daughters. I met some of their sons, and wonderful conversations. Really, and this is at the Civil Rights Museum down in Berkeley. Now I can feel bad about that. Okay. And I can feel depressed about that we ever had that. Or I can take the Jackie Robinson story and stories, like that, of overcoming and changing America,
Sure.
and feel good about that. So which way are we going to feel in this country? Are we going to focus on where we were? Or are we going to focus on what we did to make it better and where we're going? That's
Right.
where I want to be.
And
That's where I want to be. I don't want to be in a perpetual hate of my country. And I could very easily do that because probably I'm somewhat African American. I don't know. I've never had one of those goofy tests that they do. You send
they
a
may become a
sample.
sponsor, and then we'll start
23andMe,
advocating
yeah.
for it. So
And frankly, I don't give a rat's ass what my ethnic heritage is. It doesn't matter to me. I am an American.
yes,
That's
that's
You
what
and
I was
Teddy
told is
Roosevelt, baby.
You brought it up before when you were like Irish, and I remember going to school and kids at a young age would ask you, well, what are you? What are you?
Yes, sir.
We're Irish, we're Italian. And I remember I asked because I didn't know. I remember I asked my mom and dad, I said, but what are we? My dad said, you're American.
Bingo.
And I was like, well, but where are we from? He says, your birth certificate says made in the USA.
Yeah. Right.
He was like, that's
Right.
what you
and
are.
this
Right.
is unique to the world, really.
It is.
We don't
We're an experiment.
Yes.
like other parts of the world. If you say, like, if you live in say Germany, but you're from Ireland or Turkey or whatever,
Yeah.
well, you're Turkish, and you're even if you were, that's what you
You're
are.
an Auslander.
And you can
And-
only live there and do this, and
Yeah.
you can't move up any higher.
We have a system where you can be from almost anywhere and become a
Yeah.
United States citizen,
Absolutely.
and actually anywhere, and become a United
Absolutely.
States citizen and become an American. And they called this the melting pot, and it used to be that people would come over, and the goal was to become Americans. And now here's where I disagree. I don't even know if we're disagreeing, but here's where I think it makes our country so special is that we do have a diverse origin and background, where the Irish culture sort of continued to some extent, and the Italian culture continued to some extent,
Sure.
and the wherever else you would have come from to become American, the German culture, the Jewish culture,
Right.
the whatever,
Yeah.
it continued, and it becomes part of being an American.
Absolutely.
And that's what makes our country diverse, not individually that we all have a different skin color, or we
Right.
all have this, we all have that, we're all represented differently.
Right.
You bring with you your culture, bring with you your heritage, and become an
Absolutely.
American with it.
Absolutely.
But
And
then you
it's
meld
awesome.
that with the American culture.
and it becomes something new and better and different.
Yeah,
right?
so
That's
we're not disagreeing.
So-
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
used to be a member of the Ancient Order of Hibernians. Okay,
I don't even
but
know what a
that-
well, right.
Hibernian is.
but
Right.
so that didn't mean I marched around saying, you know, I'm Irish, I'm better than you.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, no, that means on St. Patty's Day we go march down the street,
And
and
it's cool.
Oh, we should have had you here for St. Patrick's Day. It was a hoot.
Well, I'm probably the only Irish, Lebanese, whatever else American in this city. But the point is, the point. Well, maybe Bobby Rahal too. I don't know. But the point is that that sure, you celebrate the cultures that we all come from. I'm not saying get rid of the Italian festival or the Greek festival or any.
Oh no, bring it on.
Or the Near East Side, the African American events. Those are all wonderful. They're all part of the tapestry of America. But the point is, it's a tapestry. It's all sewn together.
Mhm.
It's all one quilt.
Right.
Okay, and we're you can have different patches, but it's the same quilt. And when you see these
Wow.
people that get sworn in as new American citizens, and you see the tears in their eyes, those are
Yeah.
the ones that we want here.
Those are the ones
Okay.
we should listen to.
Those are the ones we should listen to. The guys that fought with our guys in Afghanistan, that the Mexican guys that went through the loops and the hoops to join the U.S. Marine Corps,
Yep.
and they fought as non-citizens for this country, and that's what got them their citizenship.
Right.
Well,
Hoorah,
let me-
man!
Yeah.
Those are badass dudes. Those are the Mexican, now Mexican Americans that, if you will, that Trump or me or you. Those are the kinds of people we want.
So
in
hold
this
on.
country.
Let me ask you then. I want your opinion on this.
It has
because
nothing to do with what country they came from.
we have a scenario or situation right now where take critical race theory or take whatever politic you want to call it. It is an effort, I believe, to divide us up and categorize us based on our ethnic origin, our race.
Right.
And what you just said, what we're talking about here, would be severely chastised by a good number of folks right now
Oh,
as
sure.
being horrible, xenophobic, racist,
oh, yeah.
awful,
Oh, yeah.
terrible people.
Right.
Why do you think that is? What is it now that makes it so if you believe that I want to treat you equally, even though I shouldn't because you got Lebanese blood in you or whatever,
whatever.
you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
it's like,
what?
if I didn't look at anybody
Right.
that came into this room today or anybody that's ever come into this room and said, oh, that person must be from so-and-so.
Right.
I better treat him better or treat him. I treat everybody the same
The same.
until you
That
do
was-
something that would warrant otherwise.
Well,
But
that was one of Trump's big sins, right? So he treated Hillary Clinton in the debates like he would have treated a dude.
Yeah.
Right. He was rude, direct, crass, made up nicknames. He slapped her around like he would have slapped around a guy.
but I don't think he would have done that unless attacked first. And there is a little bit of
Well, people don't really want equality, is
Yeah.
my point,
That's
right.
Steve.
Yeah.
That's really what people want is privilege. What people want are advantages. Okay. And that's a natural human greedy thing.
Mhm.
We all would like to just go to the mailbox and open up an envelope and there's $100,000. Okay. We all want more stuff. We all want comfort. We want security. We want all that. And so, it's all the Gordon Gekko thing. Greed
Sure.
is good and all that. That is what drives capitalism. That is what makes you work your ass off as a lawyer, is you're putting in the hours, okay, to earn more money for yourself, to make your situation better, to help your children, to help you, whatever, to donate to charities, whatever the whole orbit around Steve Palmer. You're working your ass off to make it better. And that's what I'm doing. That's what Jared's doing. That's what everybody in this room ought to be doing. Okay.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But what people want really is not equality. They don't want to be treated the same in terms of their opportunities. If they can get an advantage, whether it's their gender, their skin color, I don't care, white, black, whatever, people are happy to take those advantages. And we get back to the justice is blind thing.
Sure.
Okay. That's where we need to be. We need to be when a human being interacts with me, I do not see their color. Okay. I took African American studies in college. I was the only white guy in the class.
I was going to
Okay.
say, man, that was like
I was, yeah,
before
this
the,
is in
the big war, right?
you're a geologist. This is back in the Pleistocene
Yeah, man.
epoch. Okay.
Well,
So
you and I are cut from the. We look about the same.
So
So we're
I-
the last of the cavemen.
I was it. And I was told by the professor, and she wasn't talking to me, except that I was the only white guy in there. At least, perception wise, there could have been other white folks in there. Maybe Obama was there. Because he's just as much white as he is black, right? So anyway, she said, all white people, okay, all white people are racist. And she said that to the class, and that was the foundational beginning point of that class. I raised my hand and I said, that's not true. I can only speak for myself. I'm not a racist. Okay. I don't perceive anybody in here as any better or any worse than me. Okay. I took this class to learn about, Patrice Lumumba and about Nelson Mandela.
Well, the culture, right? Or whatever.
But I've come here to take a survey in African American history, learn about Frederick Douglass, learn about, just everything about the history. And you lead off with that I'm a racist because of, well, how do you know? How do you know what my parents taught me? How do
It's
you know
so
what's
offensive.
in my heart?
It is so offensive.
It's completely offensive. And what has come out of that experience, and it's handicapped my sons, it's handicapped me professionally, it's handicapped all of you guys, whether you know it or not, is the using bias. Okay. And some of the greatest thinkers, Thomas Sowell, Clarence Thomas, Candace Owens, you mentioned her. Some of the greatest African American thinkers today are offended by the idea at this point that you fight discrimination with discrimination.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just had a son get into medical school. Okay. His grades and his achievements outside of the classroom, as well as in the classroom, would have gotten him into medical school a year earlier. Okay. He was being told just straight out by admissions officers he was the wrong gender and he's the wrong color. Okay. And that prevented, at least for a year, America from getting another doctor.
Yeah.
Now, how many times has that happened with firemen, with cops, with lawyers, with scientists, with every other profession?
You mean progressivism is actually regressivism?
We are doing things, whether it's Title IX with girls or whatever it is, and the tranny thing is a beautiful way to expose that. We all have individual talents. Women are better at some things than men.
Lots of things. Like
okay,
childbirth, for
let's
instance.
go with it. Well, with a lot of things. Actually, yeah. Steve Horn, who was the guy who ran True Sports, Bobby Rahal's racing team, said his best mechanics were the lady mechanics.
It's interesting.
You know why? They would follow your little airplane checklist.
That's right.
To the letter.
T.
Their
To
egos,
the T.
their
Yep.
egos didn't get in the way.
Well, no, dude. It was more scientific than that. So when there was a torque spec for a wheel nut and it said 120 pounds-feet, okay, they got out the torque wrench, calibrated it,
Made sure it's correct.
and went click and stopped turning at 120 pounds-feet. The dudes, you know what? Just
Yeah, more like
Doesn't feel right. Yeah, it needs to be tighter.
let me just give it
There's
a
an art
li-
to it, right?
Just-
I don't
let me
need-
just
guilty.
give it a
I don't need a map.
Guilty.
Yeah.
I don't
okay,
need a map.
guilty.
I can get
Yeah.
there. Right.
So, hey, so listen, I don't have that superiority gene in me at all. Women can do whatever, but don't tell me, okay, don't tell me that a 110-pound man or woman can hump up, 40 flights with an oxygen bottle on her back and a fire hose and bust through the office wall and rescue my ass. Okay, that's bullshit. Okay, there are some people, there are physical aspects to some jobs that most women, maybe all women, NFL front line. I don't know that there's a woman that's ever been born that could do that job.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, should she be allowed to go out and try? Hell yes. Okay. Same with flying a fighter jet or whatever the hell they want to do. Okay. I'm all in favor of that. But don't tell me that we're exactly the same.
No, it's nonsense.
We're not.
It's nonsense.
And that's what the whole tranny thing, like the best female athlete in
You
California.
redefine what female is, and then it all fits.
The best female high school runner in California, I think they said, would finish 250th against the high school boys. Well, that's why the women are freaking out about. That's why you have all these tranny bills in state legislatures.
It is
because finally they're not the same.
Right.
Don't tell me that Gretchen can do everything, that Billy can do.
You're talking science again, Norm.
Yeah.
Well, I asked you that question. Like, why do you think that is? And it's
Get
funny.
real. Let's get real.
There's an old quote, like Marx said this, I think it's Marx. He said, the capitalistic society contains the seeds of its own destruction. Marx was wrong on almost everything, but maybe he's right about that in some way, because what's happened is our capitalism, our freedom is based upon Locke, who says, all right, we're all flawed. We're all greedy. We're all these horrible people. And we're all capable of just horrible things, and we'll kill each other. We'll do all these things to each other in order to just get an advantage. Therefore, we've learned to work together, and it works in harmony, right? It's awesome.
Yeah.
So it's like capitalism requires freedom. It's like it does. But the same freedom also gives a platform to this nonsense. And once that took hold, once the Marxists or once those who for whatever reason, maybe they just don't understand it, maybe they hate it, maybe they had a bad experience, who knows, decided that it was bad, our system has given them a platform to advocate for that.
Right.
And the problem is that they are not permitting the other side to advocate against it, because the argument would go, scream Marxism, scream, critical race theory, all you want.
Right.
But let the other side scream against it, and then let logic and reason prevail. The problem is the other side is not given the same platform to scream back right now. And it's shouted down not only by the private industry, but now by the government. And so it's like you've got the executive branch basically advocating one side of this over the other, and then calling the other side racist if you don't agree. And it's like the freedom lets those who don't agree with it take it over and then change it. Well, and then it's not freedom anymore.
Well, you might be. I think you probably are aware of the Supreme Court case where the ACLU. Where is the ACLU these days, right?
Well,
so exactly. So remember when the ACLU stood up for the right? They didn't stand up for the KKK or the skinheads or the Nazis.
Sure.
They stood up for the rights of those repulsive groups.
You bet.
Yeah.
Okay, to march through the Jewish neighborhood of Skokie, Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the Supreme Court backed them up in being allowed to exercise their First Amendment freedoms. Now, why would an organization predominantly made up of young Jewish lawyers represent the skinhead Nazi KKK right to march through Skokie? It is because of the antiseptic quality of free language, free speech, open debate that you just referenced, Steve.
And
that's the whole point. And so when Google and Facebook and Twitter squash the other side of these debates, they are doing the work of the fascists.
Yes.
They are not allowing the natural venting of speech that may be repulsive to some groups, but it ought to be out there,
because the speech will go underground if it's not out.
It will
goes
go
underground where it flourishes.
Will go underground.
Right. It flourishes underground.
That's what Western Germany found out about the skinheads. So they banned all the Nazi paraphernalia. You couldn't get a copy of Mein Kampf. It became attractive to a certain punk aspect of German young men.
There's a rebellion to it that made it cool, right?
Exactly.
So
once they labeled albums that has language on it
I
There
want
you
by
go.
Tipper.
Right.
You wanted that album.
Right.
you know,
What did they say in
You
that
wanted
album
that
that it
in-
gets labeled?
That NWA album.
the
You
case.
wanted
Oh yeah.
The case you're talking about, there was a guy I worked with, a lawyer in town. He was an ACLU lawyer. His name was Benson Wallman. And Benson was, he was a quirky guy. He used to be the Frugal Gourmet, actually. Remember in the
Oh my
Dispatch? I
God,
think he was the
yeah.
guy who wrote
Yeah.
that article.
Cool.
And Benson was like really quirky, but likable, affable guy.
Yeah.
And, you know, he was a short little Jewish guy.
The
And
ACLU back in those days was badass.
Phenomenal.
They were phenomenal.
I was working on a case with him. I was just out of law school, and I got appointed via some of my mentors to represent William Wickline. William Wickline and was accused of murder and was the first death penalty case after it was reinstated. He was convicted by a 3-judge panel and sentenced to death. I was doing some habeas work on it, and Benson Wallman was also appointed on it. And I went to his office one day, and on the wall was a Supreme Court quill. You get a quill when you argue in front of the Supreme Court.
Huh.
And it had the opinion, and the quill is all framed artwork where he had represented the KKK, the fascists. Right next to it was his framed poster from his trip to Auschwitz, where he, you know, obviously his family and his heritage and everything else was there. And I can't remember who it was in his family that had been in one of those camps, but it was something like that.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, in a very pointed conversation, you just said, you know, I keep those both there. This one to remind me of my heritage and how important that is, that we permit this one to have speech, you know, and it was like,
Yeah.
it was power. It's giving me goosebumps thinking about it. I mean, he was,
You just gave me goosebumps. That's incredible. That's awesome.
it was, I mean, it was like,
Yeah.
wow. And I learned that
Right.
lesson early on. So he had argued on behalf of the KKK,
right.
and
On
the-
behalf
and
of
the-
their rights.
on behalf of their rights,
Their rights.
to
Not
have-
on behalf
sure,
of their
not their
philosophy.
cause, not their cause.
For God's sakes. And people cannot get that through their heads.
Oh, we're trampling all over those memories.
Yep.
That's all they are now.
And he knew it. He knew,
Right.
and the ACLU used to know this, that
right.
the only way to deal with that nonsense was to take it on, air it out, give it sunshine where it dies.
Correct.
And it does,
It
because
does.
it's absurd on its face.
It's absurd on its face. And, you know, the First Amendment is not about protecting speech that we all agree about.
It's the
It's
opposite, yeah.
it's not about Disney movies,
Yeah.
right? It's about the things that we would find contentious, the things
Yeah.
that maybe even disgust us. It's about Larry Flint's dirty magazines. It's about all that stuff. It's about the things that we need to have the seamy, gross side of speech in order to have the other 99% that really matters.
Sure. And if you want to tamp something out, if you want to get rid of something, you beat it up, right? You just take it on and beat it up.
That's a scientific method.
It's the scientific method, and it works.
Yeah.
So if you come in here spewing a bunch of nonsense about how racism is good and how the KKK and these white supremacists should be taking over the world, and it was our privilege to have the world, it's like, it's bullshit.
Right.
It's obvious bullshit.
Right.
And I'll let you come in here because I'll take that on all day
We
long.
will take your ass apart.
Yes, all
on
day
that,
long.
all day long. It's easy to do. It's a no-brainer. It takes like 10 seconds.
And this was my there's a guy, I'm not going to use his name, but there's a guy I knew in college, Jay knows him, and I used to call the rule by his name. This is the so and so rule.
Right.
And it was because he was boisterous, blowhard, obnoxious,
All right.
good, really, really sharp guy, great arguer, but argue just for the sake of arguing. And I realized early on, I'm never going to win an argument with him. But what I am going to do is convince everybody else in the room that's listening that he's wrong.
Right.
And so I'm not going to win in the sense that he's going to walk away saying, you got me on that, I'm going to change my viewpoint on everything.
Right.
But it's called reductio ad absurdum. I could reduce his
Sure.
argument to absurdity.
Right.
And then everybody walks away and is like, oh, that guy's just a blowhard. And it worked. And I usually when I try to take him on face to face and convince him he's wrong, I realize there is no end to that. It's like using a joiner in woodworking the wrong way. It just keeps joining and joining and joining away,
Right. Right.
and you get nowhere. But if you put
Well,
the pressure on the right table,
Right.
all of a sudden you can
You
have
may
success.
not convince him, but in the conversation around you. So when you're on Facebook and there is an obvious white racist, black racist, Latino racist, Polish racist, whatever kind of racist, and they go on and on about how their culture is responsible for all of the advances in human society. And so therefore, you know, Egyptians or white Caucasians or Jews or Germans or whatever the little, whatever their problem is, and they want to say that population is the ascendant. They're the brainy people. They're the ones that are responsible for all the advances in society. Okay, when you blow them apart and you just destroy that, well, have you ever heard of the library in Alexandria? Well, I think those people were brown. I don't think they were lily white Caucasians.
Sure.
They,
And
and
neither was Jesus Christ. Right?
exactly. So you
Right.
bring up, you just start bringing up things, the big, huge kingdoms in South America, the Inca, the Aztec, and the sophistication of their astronomy, you just start showing examples of how there were these very complex cultures doing incredible science, incredible engineering, okay, way before whatever culture they say, and so you blow that apart. Well, there are other ears listening.
Yes.
There are children listening. There are other people that you can affect with that disinfectant free speech. And when you quash it and you force it underground, that's
And like think just in our not our times, but modern times, the two sides of the fascists and the communists. So Stalin and Hitler, they're the ones that would suppress that stuff. They did not want the alternative viewpoint to be exposed. In fact,
Book burning.
they created enormous ruses just to avoid that.
and they're both socialists,
And
Hitler and Stalin.
They're both communist socialists. They're both Marxists. They're both little kissing cousins of Marxism.
Exactly right.
But
Big liberals. Hitler was a liberal.
yes, just go. There's a guy named Genevieve Gentile, I think was his name, or Giovanni Gentile was the sort of the fascist grandfather who was a Marxist. But anyway, if you go, like, let's just say take the 1933 Olympics. So Hitler's got his Aryans on the big stage. Enter Jesse Owens.
Yeah.
And blows them away, like blows them all away,
Right.
right? This black dude from a capitalist country comes in and blows them all away.
Came from Michigan,
It
went to Ohio State. Deal with
Yeah,
it.
baby.
Deal with it, right? And everybody likes that story. Everybody likes that story. It's an awesome story.
Right.
It's like he comes in, Hitler
Even
is
the
like
German
this,
people, a lot of the German
cheered.
people cheered him.
right?
They loved
because he
that
was an
story.
underdog and he was impugned and they cheated and they lied,
And
but
he was
still won.
humble.
Mhm.
Humble. He
Right.
went about his business.
And
And
schooled them.
took them apart in the kind of way we're talking about.
That's
He just
right.
did it on the playing field, and the power of that still lingers yet today.
Yes, it
and I suppose it's the same as saying, bring on the nonsense into our little round table, and I'll take it apart all day long. And if you take me apart, I'll learn from it. So fair enough.
Right.
And if anybody who advocates anything differently is just being a fascist and they're just being a communist, because I tell you what, who amongst us has all the right ideas that never need be challenged? It's like it's the end of civilization as we know it.
Yeah.
And we did it in the Dark Ages, and it's about to happen again if we're not careful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, regressivism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and
It's-
Dark Age is a good analogy, right? Because then all of a sudden you had attacks coming from the crazy looking wild eyed Vikings coming in to raid and kill and pillage everybody. So what was that? Fear. People had fear, and they had to go hide in their castles, and they had to go shudder and run away. And then I think the government entities, the lords, would take advantage of that, and they would start to say, all right, well, you can come hide behind my walls. I'll protect you.
Right.
But now you owe me. And now there's now you have a contract of feudalism that you got to go through. It killed all the awesome stuff you talked about, the Greeks, the Romans, the Sumerians, like all of them. It killed those thoughts for how many 100,000 years almost, probably,
Right.
until the Renaissance. But I don't know. I guess that's solving the problems of the world, man. We just did it right there. We
Norm,
just
you
did it.
hit on something for me about man, about the observatory in Chichen Itza in
Yeah.
Mexico.
Yeah.
I've been there twice. First time they didn't have it uncovered, and then on my second honeymoon, I had it uncovered, and my wife and I. And these guys were looking at the sky
Yeah.
and know more about astronomy than we'll ever know, almost.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, we still build observatories like this.
That
It's-
three
Exactly.
north of Westerville.
It's I'm
I mean,
telling
north
you,
of
man.
Worthington.
I'm telling you, it's
in Delaware County.
that
Yeah.
got me thinking. That put me down a whole train of thought.
Yeah.
It actually changed my life. It
Yeah.
changed my scientific life. It changed how I look at science. It changed what I've been taught in
Yeah.
science.
Yeah.
Man, there's a lot of stuff that we have either forgotten or neglected to teach ourselves.
Well, I think the point is there's lots to
100%.
learn from everybody, and you're going to eliminate the dumb ideas, and you're going to advance the good ones only by challenging all of them. And until we're willing to do that with all this crap, then we're going to die, man.
Well-
I mean, it's like this culture is going down if we let that continue. So if I'm not allowed to challenge critical race because I'm either shouted down publicly and bullied away, or because worse, the jackboots come and say sorry,
Right.
which is what, that's Stalin.
Right.
And where does it go? Like,
Well,
how's that going to happen?
We cannot have too much more of the oppression of people based on race. So one of the things Biden has done, I don't know all the details. I just know the headline, and somebody smarter than me will figure this out. But I had heard that based on race, that farm loans were now being discussed, going to be forgiven by the federal farm
Oh, that was in one of the stimulus already.
Stimulus,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's based on race. So
Yeah.
so if through no action of his or her own, if you're a rich, wealthy black farmer, don't need the loan forgiven, you're going to have that loan forgiven at 120% is
Yep.
the number I heard.
Sure.
Yes.
So not only the original, the original amount of the loan, but then a 20% bonus that you're going to earn on it,
It's absurd.
just a gift based on your race. Now, what's going to happen? So my question, I always go back to Obama because it's a perfect thing. Obama could have solved a lot of things in our country. And when he was sworn in, I actually cried a little bit because I thought that we had crossed some kind of, I didn't vote for him. Okay.
No, I remember that speech on the big stage. Yeah, right. I remember.
Didn't even trust him, didn't like him. But I thought just for a glimmer there, my heart was saying, wow, a guy who's half black, half white, this guy could heal America. This guy could go a long way to finally
Get a momentum going, at least.
put
Yeah.
a wooden stake
Sure.
through the heart of racism.
Just quit talking about it
For one, yeah.
and accept that we've crossed a bridge.
We've crossed a bridge.
yeah.
So I don't know
Like,
why.
remember how it used to be
Then
when
his
we
wife
never would have
spoke.
elected a black president? Remember how that used to be? Like, he could have said that. Now look where we are now. Let's move forward as Americans. Nope.
Right.
He hates America.
Right. Well, hey, Martin Luther King, that dream you had? I'm up here.
Yeah.
I'm holding hands.
Yep.
Look, here's my vice president, white dude.
Mhm.
Here I am, ostensibly a black dude. We're holding hands.
Sure.
We're at the helm.
We did it.
We did it.
We did it.
Amazing.
Nope. He went the other way with it.
Now we went the other way. Cambridge police.
Cambridge police,
I mean,
Ferguson.
he just
listed.
he just went full Michelle.
Yep. Just total nonsense. And well,
Hands up, don't shoot. My God, these fictions, this whole the George Zimmerman thing.
hands in this
Did you see
Ferguson
the
thing-
CIA video that came out? The lady who says I'm a cisgender millennial, and then she goes on and describes herself as a woman
did.
of color.
Yeah.
She's Latina. Okay, so she's not black. So she gets to be a woman of color, but George Zimmerman, remember, described him as a white Latino.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Well, wait a minute. Can the CIA please figure out are Spanish speaking Latino white, or are they people of color? See, and I don't care. I just think it's ridiculous.
It matters to me only to the extent it's an identifying thing. If you're solving a crime, you can describe how somebody looks.
Right.
That makes some sense. And
Right.
it also matters to me if it becomes the reason for the crime.
So before
And-
I went to law school, Steve, I was a journalism student. So I have a degree in English and a degree in journalism. What we were taught back in the day, okay, if you reported a bank robbery story, okay, you didn't lead with race. So what's the Columbus Dispatch and all these other stations do?
Lead with race.
They lead with
Yeah.
race. We were taught,
Not only that, to the exclusion of everything else.
to the exclusion, we were taught that the proper journalistic method was to report that there was a crime, show a picture. If they've got a picture of the perp and the police are looking for him, show a picture. Okay. If the police put out a description, he's 5'10", he's he speaks Polish, he's from this town or whatever, go ahead and give all that information. But if the police didn't put out a description, like maybe they've already apprehended the rapist or whatever it is, you don't say black man rapist
Correct.
in the lead. But now you do.
Now you do. Yep.
What the hell is that all
It's
about?
Jim Crow
What-
stuff in reverse. I mean, that's all this is.
It's
and
unbelievable.
It's like, it doesn't solve anything. And I think at the end of the day,
It amps up our society.
and it also becomes the proverbial boy who cried wolf when there really is a racially motivated crime. Because
That's right.
first of all, not everything is racially motivated. I'm not even sure. In fact, I'm pretty sure there was zero evidence that the George Floyd catastrophe, whether you believe it was guilty of those crimes or not guilty of those crimes, I saw no evidence of any racism. Period. End of story. There was no evidence presented in that courtroom.
I don't think
that
he was
Chauvin's a
charged
racist.
with. Yeah, was
Wasn't
he charged?
charged. Nothing.
I don't think he was charged with a hate
Nothing.
crime.
Nothing at all. So now that becomes a racially motivated murder in the books. So the next time there is a racially motivated murder,
Right.
it gets less attention, or it gets sort of scoffed at by
Right.
those who are backlashing against that. So the
Right.
truth always works,
Right.
and falsehood and narrative that's false to meet whatever your ideology is, it doesn't work, and it almost always backfires to
Right.
the opposite direction. It's like
Can I ask you a question, Steve?
Sure.
Because again, this is just me. But like, if a guy's going to come to my house and assassinate me, okay, and he just wants to kill me, maybe because I don't know, here you are, you're a gentrified little farm hobby guy, I think I'm just going to pop you because I'm jealous of you. Or if he yells at me, hey man, you freaking Lebanese Irish cracker, I hate you because of your race. I don't really give a crap. I mean, why
Sure.
does so this whole hate crime thing?
no.
For me, it's all bullshit.
To me, it's political. It's
all
political
bullshit. If you
nonsense.
If you shoot anybody, it's kind of a hate crime.
Duh.
And
Right?
the problem with it is this: is that you can't. Very few situations would you ever be able to prove that kind of animus on the part of somebody. And a murder is a murder is a murder is a murder. It's
Right.
never worse than another murder.
But the
it's like
media
it's-
is obsessed. As soon as they find out that a Japanese American was beat up on the subway by 3 black guys in San Francisco, right? There's like a little
Sure.
Asian crime thing,
Mhm.
and going on the West Coast. And I'm not saying it's by black folks. It could be white folks. It could
Anybody,
be
right.
Latinas. Latinos. It could be whatever. I'm not making a sweeping statement, but there is something about Asian Americans getting attacked right now. There is a little thing
Sure.
that's going on there. So every time that happens, the media's first impulse is, okay, is that a hate crime? Hey, I'm like, if I'm the Japanese market guy laying, or if I'm in Chinatown, I'm laying on my back and I'm bleeding because I've been stabbed 5 times. I don't really know if I give a shit what the motive was.
Actually,
I just want you to find the perp
and you're right.
and take him to court and punish his ass.
And here's what you said, something that gave me some pause. And I'm not sure. And here this makes my point. I don't know if there are more Asian crime victims now than there were a year ago.
I don't know either.
Because the fact
It's
is,
being highlighted.
we are only like the media is highlighting
That's
certain
right.
crimes
Exactly
and
right.
to the exclusion of others.
I agree.
And this is the problem with doing this, is that it gives the perception that there's more Asian crime just because we are now covering Asian crime.
Correct.
And so as I sit here, I don't know that to be true.
Right.
I don't know it to be false. I don't know. I don't
Well,
believe
and
it.
they tie it to COVID.
Yeah,
Well, and
okay.
there had to be a tipping point.
Yeah.
Of something.
Right.
Something triggered the more coverage of it.
Right.
Well, I think what triggered more
Somebody-
coverage is the politicians would say, quit blaming China for
Correct.
coronavirus.
Right. Well, and also wasn't the one guy that did attack the older woman spewing out
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah.
But how much of that happened before that we don't
Yeah,
know about?
I don't know. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Right.
That's
So
that's
I
what I'm
don't
saying.
know.
The tipping
Right.
point.
So
of
to me,
that
that
was
I
said
don't know.
out
seems-
loud.
Go ask all those people in the concentration camps in Colorado
Sure,
how happy they were that FDR put them there.
you bet.
Right.
Right.
Who was a Democrat liberal.
That's right.
Oh yeah, the internment camps for the Japanese all over
Right.
California.
So,
Gosh,
how about that?
were those anti-Asian crimes
Right.
perpetrated by the Democratic Party?
but the problem,
Literally just because of where you're from.
the problem with the hate crimes and the racially motivated crimes is that you're going to tend to want everything to fit into that new mold,
Right.
and when it doesn't, it demeans the very crime you tried to create and prevent. And the other thing I would say, and I've said this 1,000 times, look, you can make that a crime 100 times over.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean people still won't do it.
Man, how about
And-
China, huh?
Yeah.
Are those guys geniuses or what? So they give us COVID, okay? They tell us it didn't come from the city it came from. It came from like
Right. Some weird
monkey brains or chicken
Bad.
poop or bad fish
some
or something
market. Right.
or bats or something. So it came from the Wuhan laboratory is pretty much what they're concluding now. And then they get rid of the president because the president, to his discredit, shut down the economy when he shouldn't have over something that's not any worse than a really bad flu season. Okay.
Mhm.
So that's on Trump. So he got, but he got triggered by Fauci. So he listened to all the wrong people and shut down the economy. And now they're dropping their space station rockets on us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I don't know.
they're
you know,
ingenious, and they're also loaning us all the money.
Yeah.
That we're handing out.
It's
to
a
people.
hostile takeover.
And all
Yeah.
the product we needed to buy, all the PPP, I mean, all the protection, the mask.
But the money
That's
we're
all
paying
coming.
unemployed people, that's a bonus over the money that they otherwise would be making, is unbelievable. And it's all Chinese money.
Yeah. It's
Look,
look, when you break
geniuses.
this down to its lowest common denominator, it's almost hard to think
Right.
about.
And they're perpetrating a genocide right now against their own population, people in their own country.
Yep.
They're spooling up their military.
They're sterilizing their women.
They're it's what they're doing is absolutely incredible. And I mean, they're taking over Africa. They're just,
For our batteries, for our electric cars.
yeah, it's unreal. Just what they're
They're
up to.
enslaving them.
And here's the
Panama
problem.
Canal.
It's
They don't play by the same rules, and
yep.
Right.
we're not willing to. Like, people are not willing to let that fact out into public.
Well, we just got rid of the one guy that was taken on China.
Yeah.
Because the two Bushes wouldn't.
Nope.
Well, they're complicit.
Somebody said this. I heard this said. It's like, in our time, there was an authoritarian takeover of a free country, like within the last decade, in the last 5
I
years.
mean, Clinton sold them the Lincoln
And-
bedroom.
and this is and it's going to happen again in Taiwan. And it's
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, wait till that happens.
it's good. It's not even. It's just. It's on. It's happening.
Yeah.
And
Hong Kong's gone.
Hong Kong.
Yep.
Hong Kong falls in modern times to a regime that is as evil and authoritarian as any we have ever known in history.
Absolutely.
And nobody said a peep.
Nope.
Let
Britain-
it happen.
Britain-
Well, I guess we had this deal.
Britain.
It's like, hold on a second. Last time we did that was in 1931, right?
So
Or-
Thatcher defended the Falklands, okay, but the rulers of the prime minister of Great Britain at the time, when Hong Kong fell, okay, did nothing, okay, and they had the lease. They had the agreement with the
Mhm.
communist Chinese that Hong Kong could hang on to its democratic principles and institutions for a few more years yet.
Mhm.
Okay, before it got subsumed by the mainland. But do you think Big Joe's going to do anything about Taiwan?
Not.
Oh,
anything.
not a thing.
It'll be
No.
just like
Actually, on a
Jim-
silver platter.
it'll be like Jimmy Carter did with the invasion of Afghanistan.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're not
And-
going to play in the Olympics.
And we let Hong Kong go, and it's just, these are all, it doesn't work, and it's going to result in either catastrophic consequences or another world conflict of epic proportions.
Well,
It has to.
they're doing dangerous flybys. Our Navy ships.
Yeah.
We-
They're in Canada.
our Navy is getting challenged in the Straits of Malacca. There's a lot of places in the South China Sea, Indian Ocean, where our Navy is being challenged,
Sure.
and those and America, just like our GPS system, our Navy is providing the oceanic highways for commerce for the rest of the world. It's like a
Right.
gift from the United States,
Mhm.
okay, from us, the taxpayers.
Right.
We're allowing, Japanese, German,
We're allowing world commerce to
world
happen.
commerce to happen, and
Yeah.
China is, can shut it down. Their Navy is now bigger than our Navy.
Yep. And they got maneuvers in Canada. This is a huge problem, and we're talking about wokeness.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like this is
Well, we put a CIA, supposedly a 39-year-old or whatever she said she is, 36-year-old CIA analyst. The government made a public relations movie that came out a couple days ago, and she just spews out this laundry list of little box checking about who she is.
anxiety. I got anxiety, and I've
Oh.
got this, and
I've got this,
that.
and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute.
Are you
What
good
about
at the job?
what about service to our country?
Right. Are you good at the job?
Doesn't when you join the military or the CIA or the FBI or the NSA, like your duty to your country is above you. Her little
Except if you don't like the country, they don't have that, right? That's the problem.
speech is all about her.
This is my next article that is why you don't want your criminal defense attorney to be woke. And it has to do with what you're talking about. You don't want in our military that crap to take over. It's like, and you always had that thought. It's like, all right, there's this stuff going on over here. We understand what it is. And,
Right.
it's got its little thing, and that's fine. But when you really come down to fight the big fight, you only want the people who can fight the fight and win it.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if you're black, white, man, woman. It doesn't make any difference. Do the
Right.
best job you can. Put the best people on the field of battle and go win it.
Right.
And then in criminal defense, be the same thing. So when does it stop? When am I not allowed to do certain things in a courtroom
Right.
that I should do? Because I'm here to tell you, I have represented almost every race that exists in this city at a time or two. And it never matters when they come into my conference room. It's war. And when we talk, it's about helping them. And it's about their individual problem and all the rest of the nonsense. And we
Right.
might even joke a little bit about race sometimes, but
Right.
all the rest of the nonsense goes out the window because we are here to do a job together,
Right.
and it matters. And it doesn't matter if I'm white and you're a woman and you're a man and I'm black. It doesn't make any difference.
Right.
And I always thought that we were above it in my line of work. And now I think maybe not. Now I think when's it going to come to be that I can't ask a witness who happens to be black or happens to be a woman a certain question because it might be offensive?
Right.
And when does that objection get sustained? And as soon as that starts happening, it is done. It is the end.
Isn't that already
Oh my
happening
God,
in
that's scary.
voir dire? I mean, isn't that
Uh,
already happening? Aren't there certain questions you can't ask a
I'm
prospective
not.
juror?
This is Batson. I'm not allowed to excuse jurors just based on race or gender. And it says that here's how lawyers look at that. It's like, yeah, whatever. And if race matters in a case, don't tell me. I'm not thinking about it when I'm picking my jury. If race doesn't matter in a case, then I don't care. But if I can't do my job and advocate and force the prosecutor to prove their case, and I am handcuffed by these artificial woke standards that are nothing short of absurd and ridiculous, then my client suffers, and nobody seems to care that my client may be one of the people they're trying to protect. My client may not be one of the people they're trying to protect, but even if they aren't the person they're trying to protect, guess what? The rules are going to apply the next time,
Yeah.
and it's going to go against you. So
Is that part of what the Chauvin taste next round is? That the
Well,
jurors were not.
this is interesting. This is what's happening. There was a juror who's come out as an activist. So now there's
Yeah.
pictures of this juror wearing a Black Lives Matter shirt who was an activist against Chauvin. Now, I don't know if any of this is true. Let's assume it is just
Right.
for this discussion. There's going to be a challenge of whether there was jury misconduct, whether the guy lied in voir dire, and apparently he did. There's a rule called the Aliunde rule. I think it's ALIUNDE or ALLIUNDE, which talks about the sanctity of your jury, and you're not allowed to go back and question jury verdicts. But there are circumstances and exceptions where you can. Now, if a jury overtly lies about something
Lying,
like this,
yeah.
then this could end up not on appeal, but something else called post-conviction, where you've got to bring in evidence that's outside the record of the trial and attack the conviction from a collateral angle. So,
So I have the definition of that if you want to hear it.
sure.
You want to see it?
Yeah, let's put it up there.
Allende rule is a principle of evidence law which says that the verdict of a jury may not be impeached, by the evidence of a member of the jury unless foundation for the introduction of such evidence is first laid by competent evidence alone, i.e., by evidence from some other source. Okay. Can you tell us what the hell that means?
You can't just go in and say, we want to question. You have to have some other evidence of it. And the other evidence is usually, well, it's like what we're talking about. You've got, if this guy's making statements and lied about it, and you can prove it independent of him getting on witness stand and admitting it, now you've got something. And,
there's repercussions for that juror then too, correct? If he lied or not.
Should there be,
what stops you
there?
from lying?
Well, this is the problem with the abandonment of our obligations of virtue and morality in our system. Because look, does an oath to tell the truth really matter?
Yeah, really.
Does it really matter?
It should.
It does to me.
It should.
It does to me.
Right.
But
how many people go to jail for perjury?
Very few.
Yeah.
Very few.
Yeah.
And it happens a lot.
Yeah.
And this is the problem. If we
I
abandon,
I didn't have sex with that woman.
Right.
Not one time.
Not one time did I have not have sexual relations with that woman.
Right.
And
the Bar Association in Arkansas threw his ass out though.
And that would happen here too. If I get caught, I can't even notarize a signature that you gave me. If you want your car title notarized, and you come in, you've already signed it. I'm not going to notarize it, even if I've seen your signature 100 times, because I'm not allowed to do it. Now, if I didn't care about that rule, I would just do it, and it wouldn't ever I might never get caught. But I care about that rule, and I know what the consequences of that rule are, and I know there's implicit obligation, I think, to participate in our little experiment of government. And once we start abandoning that for any reason, it just goes to hell. It's a path to hell.
Right.
And if you're going to say, look, morality is fluid, we all have our own individual truth, and we don't have our objective morality, it's gone. It's gone.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Right. We get to all make up our own, code.
It's
of
my
justice.
truth. It's total bullshit. There is
Right.
only truth. There is not your truth or
Right.
my truth or Jared. It is only true or it is false, or you don't know yet. You need to explore it.
Right.
That's
So
it.
that rule goes back to Lord Mansfield. You know who the heck's that?
Lord Mansfield? No, but it's probably some English common law scholar.
Okay. And then Ohio codified this in August of 2009.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I've had a couple jury challenges. I've never successfully done it.
Okay.
I had a jury lie to me and it
But
was
this
a child
is
rape case.
Jones versus Bagley, 2009 U.S. District, Lexus, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It says Ohio Rule of Evidence 606B codifies the Allende Rule and states that the verdict of a jury may not be impeached by the evidence of a member of the jury unless foundation for the introduction of such evidence is first laid by competent evidence from some other source.
Now, of some interest, in Ohio, the rules governing the way we do things, like the rules of evidence, the rules of criminal procedure, they are constitutional in nature because of the modern courts amendment. So they are given some constitutional status. So if you have a conflict between, say, a statute and a rule in Ohio, the rules win. I don't know why or how that trivia popped in my brain, but it did.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think we've chewed enough ground here today. Norm, thanks for coming, man.
Sure.
This was,
Yeah.
I could talk to you for
Hey,
hours.
just,
I don't think anybody wants to listen.
I was going to say we're on a long run of time here. I had a few things I wanted to throw in, but they just opened up more cans of worms, so we'll just have to bring them back.
We do a part two.
Well,
Yeah.
so there's
And
the hyphenated Americanism by Teddy Roosevelt, which Norm alluded to. I think people should look up. And also, who knew, except for Norm, that the Ancient Order of Hibernians has membership in all 50 states and is the largest Irish American organization in the United States. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
All
There
right.
you go.
Well, let's.
And we also,
I learned
at
something
one
new
point,
today.
we got to talk more about racing with Norm.
That's part two.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's a whole nother.
Dude,
that's a whole
I
other get
want
up.
my own show.
I
man.
know we got to get you on there. The motorsports,
I
you know
think-
them all.
I think a podcast. I think a racing podcast could actually be a moneymaker. I really do.
Look,
I think-
I'm
I
with
love
you.
it.
When you think of the kind of product that is being sold to racers, and if we do a show, or if I do a show, and I hire you guys, or we've worked out something where I can, maybe launch a show and at some point pay you guys back, or however it works. We can talk about all this.
We got the plan.
But we got when you my tires for my race car, my Hoosier tires, one tire, okay, over $500.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
You know how many races I get out of that tire? 2.
Wow.
The amount of money, The gasoline at Mid Ohio, the high test gas, guys are spending $10, $12 a gallon.
Yep.
Okay.
Jeez.
So there are cubic dollars behind this entire industry. And they're, like I said, the two biggest retailers in the world of racing parts are here in Ohio. So
Well, rock and
I
roll,
think
man.
people
So
are
I'm just
starving.
saying.
how about we stick around for a few minutes and we'll
I'm just
hammer out
saying.
your show. I like the idea.
I think it's worth trying.
I'm not even a race geek, and I can see that people have been starving for real racing for 25 years.
It's not covered.
I mean,
it's-
over in Indiana, some of the stuff is covered.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of it is
In
because that is a
Indiana.
racing state.
Right.
But, man,
That's where
they-
the Indy 500 is. So
Yeah,
that's why.
and people are dying for real racing.
So what? So here's the deal. So like I told you, I was a journalism degree guy. So I worked on the student paper. I was an editor there. I did the student magazine. I was an editor there. So at any rate, the sports writers for the Dispatch or the guys on TV, the local, whatever, they're all round ball guys. They're all golf, football, basketball, baseball. That's their culture. So
Sure.
you throw in every now and then, racing because like a celebrity from Ohio might be involved.
Yeah.
Like right now, Graham Rahal, okay, who I don't even know if he lives in Central Ohio anymore. Probably doesn't. Probably lives in California. I have no idea. But just as an example, that's the only like interest they have is like the personality tie-in. To them, it's like not even a real sport. They don't consider us athletes. They have no idea that over in Indiana at the university, there's a whole motorsports health degree. There are people who do nothing but train athletes in physical conditioning. I know that's hard to believe looking at me, but actually,
Mhm.
I bet,
like
right.
where I started a few years ago to where I am now, orders of magnitude stronger, orders of magnitude better able to breathe, better reactions. And there's all kinds of drills. There's all kinds of things. I'm just saying it's an untapped thing. And as you say, it's not covered. And it's not covered for reasons of cultural bias. It's just guys that want to do sports in journalism. They want to do the sports that they like.
Correct.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's an
That's all.
it's an untapped market.
They're not covering bowling.
I love anything that burns petrol.
Burn. That's right. So it's like motorsports, right? Stuff
Yeah,
that burns
right.
gas.
Right.
That's, it's fun. All right. Well, we'll stick around
Okay.
for a little bit. We'll talk about it. A couple things happening here on May 21. We have a big event coming. It's going to be at Studio 35 up in the Short North. We are bringing in a football celebrity. We'll drop his name next time, but a football celebrity. So mark your calendars. There's going to be some general admission tickets, but you're going to get to meet and see and experience some pretty cool stuff. We got the comedians on South High. Jason Banks taking off as usual. Check him out on TikTok at Jason Banks at TikTok, whatever.
Jason Banks comedy.
Jason Banks comedy. Comedians on South High still rocking every Wednesday night. You're in tonight, right?
We'll be back in tonight, and then we'll be going to open mic at the Red Rock Pub in Black Lake, Ohio, right off Broad Street there, just outside of Reynoldsburg. We'll be there probably about 8:30 until we get on stage and off stage and in and out.
Gotcha. And a few other things. Brett still's continuing to a steady diet of businesses and individuals coming through with their own podcast, just like we're talking about Norm with to do his. I had a prosecutor over at the courthouse. They're going to be starting a podcast here soon, I believe. Now we have options to go live video. We have options to go live audio. We have options just to record if that's what you want to do. And we have made all the mistakes before you, so we can help avoid those when you start your own podcast. So, for instance, Norm, when you start your own, we'll give you all the tips and pointers you need. Why?
I'll need them because I'm stupid. Man.
I
always
think
say-
you've proven otherwise here today.
No, man. I sign all my emails to Ford Motor Company or anybody that I'm trying to impress. I always sign. I'm just a dumbass racer. That's what I am. I'm just a dumbass racer, and that way I can ask any question, regardless of how stupid it is. Just preface it. Just, take away the ego.
I love it. The
Yep.
limp leg approach. Just give me the old limp leg.
Yeah.
Hey, help me out. I'm just a
And
dumbass.
then
or-
carried across the
Well,
line.
one of the goals is to provide content anyway that people want to hear and want to listen to and will enjoy. And that doesn't
Right.
come easy and it doesn't come cheap. And certainly it's not free. We all spend our time, we spend our money, we built a studio.
Yep.
So if you really like what we're doing here, either the comedians, lawyer talk, or anything else, go to channel511.com. That's channel511.com. You can see the Patreon link there. Just become a Patreon. It's a couple bucks a month. Keep us going. I'm not saying that we won't keep going without you. I'm not going to be that disingenuous about it, but maybe one day that would happen if we just starved to death here in the bunker at 511.
We'll tape it.
Yeah.
There you go.
We'll go to syndication. You can
Right.
listen to the old
And
ones.
there's nothing more that you like, by the way. And I could say this. I know two of you real well here. These guys have no problem if you strenuously disagree and want to argue with them. Bring it.
Oh, yeah.
So if anything I have said, okay, even though I don't run this joint, I have no ownership. I got nothing to do with it. But if
yeah. Hey, your
anything,
shit's coming down on us.
that's right. So if anything I have said, or these guys have said that you guys out there listening disagree with, believe me, these are two open-minded guys.
Call
And
Steve.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, send in by whatever means you can to 511 your questions, your disagreements. Maybe they'll call you, maybe they'll address your situation. But like these guys are very open-minded, and you know, uh, just speaking for myself, I love all people. I don't hate anybody. And God bless America.
Yeah, no, that you couldn't have said it. I couldn't have said it any better, and I probably would have said it worse. So, yeah, questions, comments, thoughts. Want to be a guest? You want to come check out the round table? Do your time in the meat grinder, so to speak, with a contrary view. I love it. I love it.
Bring it.
I love it
Yep.
because I don't know everything. In fact, I hardly know anything, and all I know is I love to ask questions and challenge and engage in discussion and debate. I think it's a blast. I've done it with all types, all genders, all races. As anybody who comes, I love it. And like you, Norm, we come at this with love of everybody. It doesn't make any difference to us. We've had political parties in here doing fundraisers that couldn't be more opposite to my ideological beliefs. We've had podcasts come in here that couldn't be any more opposite to my ideological beliefs. And usually that ends up even off the air with a long, lengthy discussion that makes us all go home thinking about what we had to say and what we think.
Mhm.
And
With
that,
a different point of view.
yeah. So
Yeah.
what could be
God
better than that?
forbid. God forbid.
So you can just go to lawyertalkpodcast.com if you want to get a hold of us that way. So this has been Lawyer Talk off the record, on the air, live on the air on YouTube Live with video, with audio, and you can catch it at your podcast convenience wherever you get your podcast. So check us out.
And we fade out.
Cool. I was pretty damn
Oh.
gabby. Sorry about that.